Okay, remember that in these difficult questions, we're looking for you to deconstruct them really accurately. So the first thing I want you to take note of is that we have learnt this stuff. So we're not asking you to invent anything. You've got to think about what do we mean by processing stimuli, signals or stimuli. This is basically Welford's model. It's in the middle of it. How do we process them and what factors might affect that? Well, they're giving us that factor. They're giving us the idea of experience versus being a beginner. So if we've got experience, we know straight away that means we've got a great long-term memory versus not having one. It might also mean that because we're used to dealing with these situations, we're really fast and really good at selectively attending to relevant information. So when we talk about this stuff, especially processing, the other key word that we might think about is perceiving information. And if you remember, perceiving is made up of three parts: detection, comparison, and recognition. And those three parts kind of integrate the long-term memory, the short-term memory, and dealing with all that mess of signal that is the short-term sensory store. We get from that down to this, and then we compare it back to the long-term memory in order to be able to make a decision. Do not go anywhere near decisions. We're thinking about processing in this question, and it's 4 marks, so we need to be able to provide 4 points. Explain, we might use examples, but to be honest, you need lots of key terminology in this one. So let's have a look at an answer. The first thing I wanted to show you is that I've done a little key word bank on the side over here, so you can see my key terms that sprung to mind straight away, and a lot of you did this one really well: experience and the long-term memory. But if we're thinking about the long-term memory, then we should also be thinking about the short-term memory, which is selective attention. Which things are we processing and putting into our short-term memory from all this mess of information? And if we're experienced, we actually get very good at selectively attending to the relevant cues. So good that when we've got a player trying to trick us, like with a dummy pass or a fake and drive, we might even be able to disrupt it because we're predicting it. So we get very good at selectively attending to the right stuff. And as we said, processing is all to do with DCR. So we know that what the context is, but to be honest, I'd just kind of focus on the idea of processing to begin with, and if we can get any more out of this idea of a cognitive versus an autonomous learner, then we go for it. So here's our little example, introduction. An elite athlete is able to perceive information more quickly and efficiently than a novice. That's my key point. That's the thing I'm going to almost introduce it with. And here is a model answer. So feel free to press pause and have a read, and then I'm just going to talk you through it very quickly. Let's have a look. Right, so the first thing is that all these key terms that I put on the left, I'm going to check that I've actually covered them in here. It's really important that you self-check. So we're talking about experience, and we're linking that to the long-term memory for comparison of information. Comparison to the stuff that we've currently got in the short-term memory. So this is the process of using experience. What do we know versus what have we got in front of us? Because they've encountered all this stuff many times before, you should recognise the relevant stimuli much better, much faster, much more accurately than a beginner. And it should also take very little effort to do so. So I'm going to also highlight that because that gets a mark on the mark scheme. Why is that? Well, we've got strong filtration of background noise. Look at all these key terms we're padding in. We might even say what that means, getting rid of irrelevant stuff from the short-term sensory store. We can instead use that information to attend to the most important cues or information that we've got in front of us, and this is called selective attention. Why is that good? Well, it means that we can detect, compare and recognise everything faster with greater accuracy and success compared to a beginner. If we want an example of that, just to understand it better, imagine you are defending the key and you've got someone driving at you with the ball. It means that you've been in that position before and you're able to read what the attacker is doing with the basketball, and you can position your body more successfully in order to drive them to one side or to be reactive to whatever they do next. You don't just dive in and try to steal the ball. You hold your ground. You might shadow or jockey them, and you track them. You basically try to disrupt their dribble or their layup or whatever it's going to be. So yeah, think about your own example to reflect on, and if you want to have a look at the mark scheme for this one, it's here.